Hello, everyone. Welcome. Go ahead and share this. Thank you guys for your patience as we accommodate this time. Drop some fire in the comments. Let me know you guys can hear me well. This is going to be a powerful event, and I want to make sure that you guys are able to receive this. Share this live with the last 3 people you spoke to. Go ahead and let them know to jump in. Anyone you know who has questions about the Xi-Amaru Republic or Indigenous rights, this is something that you should share with them so that they're able to get a better understanding. And even, people who may already be in the nation, we know that there's a lot of confusion that comes around when it comes to talking about jurisdiction. So we want to make sure that we clear that up today. That being said, guys, let's get into it. So, our topic is how the Xi-Amaru Republic defends you in the U.S. jurisdiction. My name is Nnakina Xi-Amaru Fears. I am the chief of the Xi-Amaru Republic and the CEO of Aboriginal Ministry of Justice, and I will be your speaker today. Thank you for joining me. When it comes to what we do, I basically work on the government side of our Indigenous government, assisting with the development of the Xi-Amaru Republic. When it comes to getting an understanding of who we are the original pyramid builders of the Americas, utilizing our Indigenous rights to repair the damage that happened to our people within the Americas and basically bringing order to the land. When it comes to understanding where we are now, the best way to put it is Isaiah 58:12. It says, "Your people will rebuild the ancient ruins and will raise up the age-old foundations. You will be called repairs of broken walls, restorer of streets with dwelling." The vision of our nation is to build a resilient and autonomous Xi-Amaru nation rooted in God, knowledge, and guided by principles of justice, unity, and respect. We envision a future where our people are fully recognized, self-sustaining, and able to, and able to exercise their rights on an equal footing within the global community. The Xi-Amaru Republic seeks to serve as a model of Indigenous governance, setting a precedent for cultural integrity, sustainable development, and harmonious coexistence with society. Our mission. The mission of the Xi-Amaru Republic Indigenous Government is to empower and protect the rights, heritage, and well-being of the Xi-Amaru people. We are committed to promoting self-determination, cultural preservation, and social and economic prosperity through sustainable governance, legal autonomy, and community-centered initiatives. We aim to create a thriving environment where our citizens can flourish and contribute positively to society. This is important for those who may be considering joining our nation. It is important for you to understand our vision, our mission, and our Constitution, because not everyone can meet the requirements. And when we talk about the requirements, it's bigger than just being Indigenous. It's about understanding that where we are today, we are reestablishing something for our people based on excellence. And that is a key part in exercising self-governance. A lot of times we hear about government or rights. We think it means, or I would say people have done a bad teaching on what it actually means. So many people have considered freedom more as the past to be lawless, right? Meaning that no one can tell you anything and you're just free to do whatever. But keep in mind, when we talk about being able to self-govern, we're talking about having a lot of power, having a lot of authority, but not using it for harm. It's about being able to contribute to society in a way that make society better, not just for us, but for everyone around us. So that is the key thing to remember when it comes to our nation. That being said, guys, it's important to understand our kingdom culture, which is the compass of the Xi-Amaru Republic. There's 4 pillars of our kingdom culture. So we do not operate on the culture of being Black. We do not operate on the culture of the world. We operate in kingdom culture. And what does that mean? Faith, which is every law and decision flows from faith in God. Family, the structure of heaven begins in the home. Discipline, integrity and accountability in every role. And service. Leadership means stewardship, not control. So even as we develop and move forward in our self-determination, we understand that this is not for us to become the things that hurt us. You understand? It's important to understand that that means that as we take on these roles, we are here to lift society and bring a standard to society, regardless of what has been done, to set a higher standard in this world as we dwell in it. So that is key to understand what our nation moves forward to do. That being said, guys, I have one moment here. So my objectives for today is to educate, which is to help citizens and the general public understand how Xi-Amaru jurisdiction operates within the U.S. territory, protecting our people through Indigenous and divine law. I want to ensure that you guys walk away knowing the difference between the U.S. civil law and Xi-Amaru Indigenous Authority and how jurisdiction determines who truly governs and define them. It's important to understand these topics because it's going to be the key on being able to exercise your rights. And we'll cover those more. And my next point is to empower. I want to show every Xi-Amaru citizen how to stand confidently under their nation's protection in matters of health, family, spirituality, and economics. I know sometimes these topics, even though you may have gone through the process, sometimes you're lacking that confidence and actually using your voice because you've been misclassified and you've been out of yourself for a long time. So this is a step, but our goal is to provide you some powerful examples on how you should be moving forward and leaving this feeling empowered. You know, the goal is to help you guys see the Republic's laws, not that they're not symbols, they are actable. They're things that you can do, offering real defense against coercion, discrimination, and systems of controls that do not represent kingdom culture. The next one is I want to make sure you guys leave with I want to clarify. I want to explain the legal foundation of the Xi-Amaru Republic using international law, ADRIP and UNDRIP, and the Republic's constitution as evidence of our lawful self-governance. This ensures that you guys understand the Republic's legitimacy as a recognized Indigenous government operating under international human rights protection and covenant law. So finally, I want to invite you guys. I'm going to extend an invitation to those seeking lawful refuge, moral order, spiritual protection through the Xi-Amaru Republic citizenship. And we also have a program that we will be announcing at the end. So for those of you who may not be of lineage, stay tuned. There's something at the end for you guys as well, so that you may be able to tap into this information for yourself and for your family. So that being said, guys, there's a couple definitions before we begin that you guys should understand. When we talk about these definitions is how we interpret them within our jurisdiction. So that being said, jurisdiction. What is jurisdiction? It is the authority under which a person is governed and protected. It defines whose laws you live by and whose justice defends you. Divine jurisdiction. The highest law, God's rule over creation. It is the foundation of all true justice, order, and national sovereignty. The authority or control that God holds over creation and delegate authority he grants to humans within specific spheres. Why is this important, guys? Because every system operates lawfully when established properly through divine jurisdiction. It is the beginning step of understanding how people are able to establish nations, okay? That being said, moving forward, Indigenous jurisdiction, which is, one moment here, the inherent right of Indigenous nations to govern themselves, their lands, and their people. This includes the legal authority to make and enforce laws, adjudicate disputes, and regulate activities within their territories, often called Indian country. Xi-Amaru jurisdiction, the lawful covering of the Xi-Amaru Republic, combining divine order with indigenous self-government to restore protection, identity, and justice to our people. So whenever you hear these terms, keep in mind these are the things that we are referring to. Xi-Amaru Republic. The Xi-Amaru Republic is an Indian country established on December 17, 2022, with its own government, constitution, and legal system, operating in accordance with self-determination and Indigenous rights. Indigenous rights. The international recognition that original nations, like the Xi-Amaru Republic, have the right to self-determination, their own governance, and protection of their culture, health, and spirituality. Economic jurisdiction. The authority a government or a court has to govern and regulate economic activity within a specific geographic territory and under its legal framework. It determines tax obligations, including which jurisdiction it must pay taxes to, especially in multi-jurisdictional environment. The ARC citizenship, a covenant-based path of refuge for those outside of Indigenous lineage who seek to align with God's kingdom order and protection under Xi-Amaru law. And we're going to get into that a little bit more at the end. That being said, guys, why this defense matters. Now, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. Give me some love in the chat. Give me some hearts. Let me know you guys can hear me. Am I coming in well? I know sometimes we have issues with the sound. Can you guys hear me? Okay, awesome. Okay, guys, so why this defense matters? I'm happy you asked. Our people were never meant to be unprotected. We were meant to live under law, order, and covenant, not confusion. Okay. For a long time, what has happened for generations, Indigenous people of the Americas who were misclassified as Black have lived without a recognized nation or lawful defense, okay? So the Xi-Amaru Republic was established so that our people would no longer stand as individuals without identity, but as a nation protected by divine law and international rights. The whole point of this is I want to explain how our government legally, spiritually, and practically defends its citizens, especially in areas of health, family, spirituality, and well-being, even while living within U.S. jurisdiction. One moment here. Throughout our Constitution and under recognition of ADRIP and UNDRIP, we lawfully exercise the right to self-governance, family protection, spiritual practices, and moral sovereignty. This is important as we move forward in what gives us the legal authority to do these things so that you are able to better understand how even within, because what many people don't recognize is they have confused systems as the territory itself, right? They assume that a government is the country itself, but it's really the best way to put it is it's the house on the land, okay? So depending on where you live determines who has a say in how you move, if that makes sense. Okay? So that is key in understanding how you are supposed to actively advocate for yourself. Matthew 5:14. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. I, I think this is important because it brings me back to Isaiah 54:17. And it says, no weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. This is the heritage, basically, of the servant of the Lord. This is important when it comes to you being able to lawfully understand how to speak up for yourself, especially once you join our nation. Meaning that this doesn't mean, and this is one of the things that I hate about when people try to talk about status, nationality, citizenship, all these conversations, status correction, they always make it seem like there's just this magical process, right? This magical piece of paper you're going to receive, and then all of your quote unquote problems go away, which is not factual. As long as we're alive, there will be oppositions, there will be adversaries. Sometimes they may look like you, sometimes they may look like someone else. But what will determine how you are best equipped to protect yourself and your family will depend on the jurisdiction protection that you have in place. Okay? Understanding jurisdiction. So, jurisdiction, guys, to keep it simple, means authority. Whose law governs you? What do I mean by that, guys? There's two things that you have to understand. What determines who a person is in this world is based on two factors: who they say they are and how they do business. I love this because when I was coming into the information, this was something that someone told me and I never forgot it. What does that mean? It means that every individual, one, has to say who they are first. And the next thing that will determine who they are is how they do business. How they do business literally means the contracts that are associated with them. The paperwork that you have speaks who you are. Okay? There are two types of jurisdictions that operate within this land that we are on. You have the federal government, okay? And then you have indigenous jurisdiction. Okay. So understanding that means that you cannot come and try to assert another type of jurisdiction in this land other than those. Okay. Now, the Xi-Amaru Republic stands within its own lawful indigenous jurisdiction, acknowledged by ADRIP Article 21. And I want to read that for you guys. Give me one moment here. Let me go to Article 21 real quick. This is one of the things that I've really learned is, in the Bible it tells us that the Lord said that his people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And that is so true, and not just knowing. A lot of times people think knowledge is just knowing something, but it's really understanding what it means. So, like I was saying before, the Xi-Amaru Republic stands within its own lawful indigenous jurisdiction acknowledged by ADRIP Article 21. What does that mean? It is the right to autonomy or self-government. Okay, Article 1 I mean, Article 21, and there's 2 points. The first one is Indigenous peoples, in exercising their right to self-determination, have the right to autonomy or self-government in matters relating to their internal and local affairs, as well as ways and means for financing their autonomous functions. Indigenous people have the right, and number 2, Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain and develop their own decision-making institutions. They also have the right to participate in decision making in matters such which would affect their rights. They may do so directly or through their representatives and in accordance with their own norms, procedures, and traditions. They also have the right to equal opportunities in accessing and participating fully and effectively as people in all national institutions and forums, including deliberative bodies. This is how we have the lawful ability to do what we do on a regular basis. So when people ask you about, well, how is it that the Xi-Amaru are able to do this? We do not have federal recognition. We have international and national recognition. Okay, back in 2016, we understand that states came together, meaning states that are typically what you would think of as countries. They came together and they put together the American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, which gives us the ability to repair the damages that happen during the events of colonization. Okay. Now, of course, they have their jurisdictions to run. So they're not coming to do the work for us. It is our job to do this work. So that means, yes, there's still a lot to be done. Okay. Because as an autonomous, see, what many people miss with autonomous is it means that you are responsible for your survival. Okay, so our nation survives not because of outside sources, it survives because of people like yourselves who have either decided to pursue services within our jurisdiction and people who are considering pursuing services within our jurisdiction, and others who decide to reach out and contribute a donation and things of that nature. Okay. And one of the things, many people have been asking, well, hey, do we have to pay a due after this? Or what is the requirements after? And to be honest, we've had conversations about taxations in many different meetings. But the reality is, guys, the season that we're in, we are aware that everyone, we don't want to create a system that oppresses you, but we also hope that as you guys are exercising your rights, you understand that our nation is fully autonomous, meaning that your support is necessary for the advancement of our jurisdiction. So, what we put in will determine how far we get. So, yes, you get exemptions, but it doesn't mean that the exemption is for you to become reckless with your life. The exemption is for you to be able to build yourself, establish yourself, and then pour in, and we pour in together as a community. Okay. Now, that being said, through our Constitution as well, our jurisdiction, one moment here, one moment. Through the Xi-Amaru jurisdiction, you guys, it stands within its own lawful indigenous jurisdiction, like I was saying, okay, when it comes to how we are able to lawfully do what we do. So we have ADRIP, which is the American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. We have UNDRIP, which is the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. And then we have the Xi-Amaru Republic Constitution. This is important for you guys to understand because a lot of people are still stuck in a time where they don't understand that the world keeps moving forward. So they try to place you still in a box, not understanding that the UNDRIP came about in 2007, and then ADRIP came about in 2016, and the Xi-Amaru Republic Constitution came about last year, okay? But our independence took place in 2022. So what I'm trying to point out here is that people make history. Every nation comes about by people choosing to create jurisdictions, okay? This is not something new. This is what people do within life itself. Thus, every Xi-Amaru citizen carries lawful standing, both spiritually and legally, with dual recognition that allows peaceful interaction within U.S. systems while maintaining national identity. Okay, and the way you do that is because when you become a part of our jurisdiction, now you have lawful status through the Indian Citizenship Act. Okay, the Indian Citizenship Act, also known as the Snyder Act, is what gives our people the ability to still have a job within the other jurisdiction, do business, be able to participate and coexist with the other jurisdiction. This is important because some people think, well, I don't want to be a part. That sounds great, but you still need to be able to provide for yourself. You still need to be able to provide for your family. So as your system, we have to make decisions that will benefit you long term, not just in your moment. And sometimes, we definitely understand why some people may feel that way, but it's important to understand that as we exercise jurisdiction, it doesn't mean you have to be an island, okay? Being able to coexist in the world is a part of living. Jurisdictions requires responsibility. Why is this important, guys? Drop it in the chat real quick. Why do you think it's important to understand this part? Jurisdictions require responsibility. Okay, awesome. So to enjoy protection under the Xi-Amaru jurisdiction, every citizen must also walk in lawful conduct and moral discipline. This is important if you want your nation to be able to protect you. Now, the issue is that before we came about, you had a lot of people, and you still do, who are on the internet. And I do believe it is a spiritual war that we're in, where people are, whether they're doing it consciously or subconsciously, they're trying to place people in a position, because one of the problems is many people are desperate, many people are angry, many people are hurt, due to past circumstances. And so you have an evil spirit that is out, literally using that to cause more harm to that individual. So they're thinking that they're because it sounds like the thing that they want to hear. What it does is it puts them now in a position where they become reckless. Do not try to use our jurisdiction for you to now think it's okay to do something as silly as run a red light or do something as silly as run a stop sign. That is not what this is about. So you have to unlearn a lot of the noise that you've picked up along the way so that you're not putting yourself in jeopardy and piercing the veil of protection that the Xi-Amaru jurisdiction offers you. You understand, our jurisdiction is here to make sure that as you continue to lawfully coexist in society, you have a defense, okay? And the way you have a defense is you do not create unnecessary circumstance in your life that would put you in a position where we cannot intervene on your behalf. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about different scenarios in a little bit, but I really want you to understand this. Jurisdiction is not only about what protects you, it is also about what governs your actions. So the reason I mention our kingdom culture is because our goal is not to oppress you, it is to make sure you understand how you are able to best benefit from your jurisdiction. When you stand under God's jurisdiction, you carry both divine protection and divine accountability. Micaiah 6:8, it says, He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God? Key. You have to understand this is not a rebellion. This is not something we do just because it sounds good. No, this is something that we do to protect Indigenous families who were injured and who are rebuilding and providing them the opportunity to have a voice that advocates for them as they try to protect their families and as they work to establish themselves in this world. In summary, guys, jurisdiction equals who governs you and what law protects you. Xi-Amaru jurisdiction, divine plus indigenous authority recognized under international law. Dual status, lawful cooperation without surrendering your indigenous protection. Why is this important to understand? Because you've heard people talk about, oh, do not use your social, do not do this. Yes, that made sense in the past to a certain degree, but it's not something that you should assume by using, you now automatically lose your lawful protection in your indigenous status. You have to kind of think logically, guys. And why am I saying this is because when you're talking about certain things, you have to understand that it's about you understanding that systems need a way to communicate with its people. So it uses certain identification, certain numbers, certain things. Stop making life seem so scary, so spooky. It's not that. You have to understand how governments talk to each other and how it talks to its people. Okay, that's all that's happening. It's not no alien work going on. It's just process that have been put in place to communicate about people. Jurisdictional awareness equals freedom through knowledge and covenant. You have to be aware of these things. When you understand your jurisdiction, you stop asking for permission and start walking in your authority. How is it that some of you have your documents, some of you have gone through the process? I've had someone literally ask about, hey, I haven't really heard about, like, I haven't gotten any feedback. Like, I would love to hear more about other people who are in the nation. Now, keep in mind, we are a government, so we're not going to publish or publicize people's information. That would be against, you know, privacy, but why are you guys holding your process to yourself? Why are you not sharing the good news with other people so that they are able to also reap the benefit? And that is one of the things that I've started to look at with the people who have come before our nation. And I understand sometimes it may feel like, well, I don't know. Like, I realize many of you are stuck in this Murph, like you're so consumed with wanting so much information. Just tell people what you've done. That's all you have to do. You don't have to be a full educator on Indigenous right. What steps did you take? How did it influence you? How did it change your life? That's all you have to tell people. But because we've become so obsessed with knowledge and information, we have lost what knowledge is. We say the same thing every time. Our nation is here to make sure that as you build, you have a protection in place that can speak on your behalf. That's it. That's what that's what we do. Okay? We are here working consistently, whether it's concerning taxes, whether it's concerning an individual, but it's not a magical process. Our process is put in place to give our people a fighting chance, to give our people an opportunity that when things show up, they actually have some form of defense versus just going with what is. That being said, guys, I want to go over practical examples about Xi-Amaru jurisdiction in daily life. Okay. So again, go ahead and share this if you're just tuning in. Share this with a loved one. Share it with the last 3 people you spoke to. That way, they are aware of what's happening, not yesterday, but what's going on today. Because this is a today process. Our process is not just about you spinning on a hamster wheel about your history. Yes, genealogy is great. However, we're here to talk about your future, right? We're here to protect the future that you have moving forward. Can you guys hear me well? Show me some love in the chat, guys. Let me know you can hear me. Okay, awesome, awesome. So here's an example, guys. In school setting, protecting children from forced mandates. So a Xi-Amaru child, let's say, attends a public or private school within the U.S. territory. Because again, what are we talking about? We're talking about how the Xi-Amaru Republic defends you in U.S. jurisdiction. Okay? So again, a Xi-Amaru child attends a public or private school within the U.S. territory. The school attempts to enforce a mandatory schedule or denies enrollment due to noncompliance with U.S. medical requirements. What would you do? Do you know what to do? This is very important because we just came out of what we all experienced, which is a pandemic not too long ago, right? Very scary. Some people lost their jobs. Some people had to comply. They felt like they didn't have any say, so they just went along and regretted it and didn't feel like they had any support. They even had to give it to their children, whatever. How do you defend yourself against something like that? Well, let me tell you how jurisdiction applies. Under the Xi-Amaru law, every citizen is protected by health and the right to make decisions consistent with Indigenous health and spiritual conviction. If a school pressures parents to comply with these mandates, well, first of all, you guys have to know that there is a process at aboriginalministryofjustice.org where you can receive documentation for you and your children to have your lawful paperwork so that you are able to have that before something happens. See, the issue is many times people try to do stuff when something has already took place, but our goal is to become a people who is proactive, not reactive. That is what we consistently work to do with the resources that we have as and try to make sure that we are working consistently to enforce that. That being said, guys, what can happen in a situation like that is you can reach out to your nation. You can reach out to our government, to our office here at Aboriginal Ministry of Justice. We can issue you a notice. We can issue a notice of Indigenous jurisdiction and parental authority, affirming that the family is governed by Xi-Amaru law. So we are able to lawfully reach out and communicate with the school system in regards to that matter. So our republic would invoke ADRIP Article 11. And what does Article 11 says? Give me one moment. Let me go there so you guys can understand that this is not something that we are trying to do. This is something that is here to actually defend you and protect you. But it is your job. It is our job to be informed. It is our job to consistently improve our system. This is what I'm talking about when it comes to even having support. You understand? You guys have to understand it's bigger than just your paperwork. If you want your system to work for you, you have to understand that it is our job to pour into it so that it will be there in a time that we need it. the most. Now, that being said, what does Article 10 say? Give me one moment, not 10. 11. Well, that one says Indigenous people have the right not to be the object of any form of genocide or attempts to exterminate them. That's one. But then we also have in Article, give me one moment here. Article 18, which covers the health and ADRIP. It says Indigenous people have the collective and individual right to the enjoyment of the highest obtainable standard of physical, mental, and spiritual health. Indigenous people have the right to their own health systems and practices, as well as to the use and protection of their vital medicinal plants and animals and minerals and other natural resources for medicinal use in their ancestral lands and territories. States shall take measures to prevent and prohibit Indigenous people and individuals from being subject of research programs, biological or medical experimentation, or sterilization without their free, prior, informed consent. Why is this important, guys? Now, it does say individual, but what happens when you step out there and you have no system? See, many people try to implement these process not understanding the importance of government because they've been hurt in the past. But the thing about having the Xi-Amaru Republic jurisdiction is we're not speaking on an individual level. We speak as the government has to speak to the system. Okay. So yes, you can work to exercise your rights on your own. You can talk to the school by yourself, and that could work. It could help. But the issue is, who do you call when it doesn't? Now, you're out there saying you're Indigenous and you're using Indigenous right, but guess what? Jurisdiction only understands jurisdiction. So they're not thinking about, well, you're saying this because what did I mention before? Who you say you are and how you do business, meaning the paperwork that are connected to you, the way you contract in society tells the world how to treat you. Okay. So if you're saying you're Indigenous, but you only say it and you don't have any point of reference and you're referencing, well, my such and such back in the day was this and that. Okay, that may work, but it's a very slim chance that you will have the covering that you need. So, that being said, this is why our jurisdiction is very powerful. So, what our jurisdiction will do is the school is lawfully informed that forcing medical compliance would constitute discrimination and violation of international Indigenous rights. So, that is the power that our jurisdiction would be to reach out to stop. And this is something that has been done, even when it comes to different situations. This is what our system does. We've had Xi-Amaru citizens, children, who they go to school. They don't have to subscribe to that once they have their documentation. And the best way to defend against that is being proactive. Give it up front before something happens. Notify the school, hey, I'm a Xi-Amaru Native American. These things here, I love your school, whatever the case may be, but this is something that goes against my belief, my system, and here's my documentation. And you guys can reach out and learn more about that by setting up an appointment on our website so we can educate you before something happens. But that is one of the many things that you can do when it comes to protecting children. Health defense in hospital or health facility. Ooh, this one is powerful because so many times people feel very vulnerable when it comes to, you know, being able to have a voice in a setting when it comes to health, or when they have to go to the hospital feeling like they can't say anything, or feeling like they just don't have the ability to defend themselves, because a lot of times what happens is people just feel like, if you don't say what they want, then you have to You just have to comply, or else you're not gonna be able to defend yourself. But this is where indigenous jurisdiction is so powerful, because let's say you do need to go in. You shouldn't have to feel like, I just have to do this. That is why we're here. Our jurisdiction. So when it comes to health protection, defending the right to choose your wellness, right? When it comes to in a hospital or facility. So the Xi-Amaru Republic defends your right to make health decisions based on indigenous belief, natural law, and traditional medicine. Within our jurisdiction, health is seen as a spiritual alignment first, physical restoration second. So how do we defend this? We defend your right to refuse invasion medical practices that violate conscience or belief. Practice natural healing, herbal care, and midwifery. Access Indigenous health professionals within the Xi-Amaru jurisdiction, which we have a couple people who will be coming out very soon that we're going to be announcing to you guys, so just be aware of that. But we want to make sure that you understand you don't have to get along. So even if something comes up, have your tribal identifications on you. Have your, let them know upfront. You don't always see, you've been so obsessed with so much information that you think you need to carry around a whole folder, a lot of stuff to tell people something. And that's not how you communicate. No one's going to read that. So you have to know, this is why your identification is important. This is why children get IDs from our nation. So when you're giving or presenting your child or yourself, you let them know, hey, this is, I'm a part of I'm a part of an indigenous jurisdiction. I'm I'm here, I'm looking for service, but there's certain things. And again, this doesn't mean that you cannot. We're not here to say that, oh, the hospital is bad. It may be something there that you need to do. So do not just take what other people are saying, like, that is still important, but we want to make sure that you're doing things from an informed position, not feeling like you have to be coerced into it. One moment, guys. So in a hospital or clinic, guys, a Xi-Amaru citizen maintains the right to refuse or choose treatment. I want you to understand that. According to fate and natural health law. Health is not rebellion, it is obedience to divine wisdom. So you are able to reach out in advance, and we do have other things that we will be implementing as time goes by. But again, we only can work as fast as we can based on what we have. So the reality is there are things that we can implement, and we are consistently working to improve that. But this nation was established in 2022. What will determine how fast we move will be how much you put in, and how serious are you about actually exercising your rights. Because the issue is, many times we want to demand things, but we're not doing the work ourselves. We can only do so much. We literally just had to let go a couple people this month because the resources aren't there. So what does that mean for you? Is it means that basically things slow down, right? So keep in mind, guys, as we build this jurisdiction, it is a partnership. Okay, we're not here to act like we have it all, because we don't. We need you to understand, as we work to support you, you also have to do your part. Okay, utilize your rights to protect yourself and also to build, because this is our system. Now, what we can do in a situation like this is we can work to issue a health jurisdiction notice protecting citizens from coercion. So there's services that is not listed on our website that you can get in touch with your system, and we can work with you in regards to certain things. Okay, that way you are prepared and you don't get caught off guard with certain things. But overall, I want to give you an example of this, right? So let's say a citizen is admitted to a hospital and faces medical decisions that conflict with their Indigenous faith or the Republic's health principles. How jurisdiction applies in this is the citizen has the right, like I said before, to refuse or choose treatment consistent with Indigenous wellness practices. We've literally had a situation where they were forcing a surgery on a child at one point, and we were able to intervene in a season where that procedure was canceled due to our jurisdiction getting involved. So if we are proactive, right? See, when does this become an issue? And when you tie our hands behind our back is when you wait for something to happen, and then you remember the Xi-Amaru Republic exists. And now you're trying to say that, well, I'm Indigenous and I'm a part of the Xi-Amaru Republic, but you just joined after. Now you're looking like a fraud. You see what I'm saying? So do not take this lightly, because why I'm saying this is I want you guys to understand the best defense is being prepared up front. Okay? Having your Xi-Amaru tribal identification that you receive from your citizenship procedure with you that day, then we can fight. But not saying, oh, I'm Indigenous, and then coming and now whatever happened, now you're coming to us and you're crying. And we're here, but it's like we need you to make decisions and stop letting crazy people give you bad information. Many people have lost their children because of misinformation on the internet. Stop listening to desperate people looking to take from you who do not understand the severity of the injury that they're causing to you, because you can't hold them accountable. I want you to understand that once you are a part of our jurisdiction and you are in a hospital, the first thing you should do is be presenting your tribal identification with whatever information they're putting down. Now, we don't have a hotline, 24/7 hotline, but, those are things that we do need to implement so that our people have around the clock support. But as of now, that is not there, but I can see that will be something very soon. But nevertheless, put down the information for the nation, put down the communication. That way, it's on file that that is something. Now, keep in mind, guys, this is not an excuse to be doing recklessness. And what do I mean by that? This is not an excuse to you not to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Responsible with yourself, with your children. This is not a defense for you to have a child that is malnourished, meaning that you're not providing a stable home for that child. So our system does not protect that. Okay, we do not protect you going to the hospital and then they call someone on you because you were mistreating or you were doing something and the child is injured. That is not what this is about. Okay, this is about families who are consistently taking care of their children, taking care of themselves, and maybe, let's say, a situation happens where someone is trying to violate their rights, then we have a ability to step in. Okay, so keep that in mind. Let's go. Okay. The next part, guys, when driving or traveling, asserting national identification. For those of you who are not familiar, you are able to receive a tribal driver's license within our jurisdiction. Now you have to understand what a driver's license is for, okay? A driver's license is basically the ability to present to an officer or an official that you have the knowledge that is necessary to operate the vehicle that you are behind. Okay. So that is the key of understanding that. Now, let's use an example. If a Xi-Amaru citizen is stopped by law enforcement while traveling within the U.S. jurisdiction and presents a Xi-Amaru tribal driver's license, let me tell you how jurisdiction applies. One, the citizen is traveling under the protection of Indigenous jurisdiction, not as a corporate entity of the United States. Now, two, the Xi-Amaru driver's license functions as official Indigenous identification recognized under ADRIP Article 21 and UNDRIP Article 5, which affirms the right of Indigenous nations to maintain their own institution. I want to read Article, give me one moment here. One moment. I should have had it. I thought I had it up, guys, but bear with me. Okay, so same thing. We talked about right to autonomy, but in this case, I want to go to 22. Okay. It says Indigenous people. So it covers Indigenous law and jurisdiction. ADRIP, which again, American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Article 22, it says Indigenous law and jurisdiction. 1. Indigenous people have the right to promote, develop, and maintain their institutional structures and their distinctive customs, spirituality, traditions, procedures, practices, and in the cases where they exist, juridical systems or customs in accordance with international human rights standards. Number 2, Indigenous law and legal systems shall be recognized and respected by national, regional, and international legal systems. Number 3, matters concerning Indigenous individuals or their rights or interests in the jurisdiction of each state, meaning the people who agree to this, right? They're referring here as the state shall be conducted in such a way as to afford Indigenous individuals the right to full representation with dignity and equality before the law. Consequently, they are entitled without discrimination to equal protection and benefit of the law, including the use of linguistic and cultural interpreters. Number 4, states shall take effective measures in conjunction with Indigenous people to ensure the implementation of this article. So when you are stopped by an officer and you present your tribal documentation, their state representative, who is a part of organization of American states, right, including the United States, who is a part of that, they have made it. This, again, keep in mind, ADRIP is binding. So they agreed that whether the officer is aware or not, this is lawful. So you're not giving a pretend or when you're committing fraud, let me clear that up. Fraud is when you are taking other people's documentation and you're claiming it as your own. That is when you start to commit fraud. So you want to be very careful when you start to do that. Okay? So if a Xi-Amaru tribal member is questioned, so our office may issue jurisdictional verification confirming the legitimacy of the ID and the citizen's national status. So whenever you use a tribal documentation, it is their job to verify you through your nation. Now, like I mentioned, we do not have a hotline. That is something that we do need to implement very soon so that people have the support that they need. But that is a process that, again, we can implement. While citizens respect road safety laws, they do so as members of our nation, not as dependents of the U.S. jurisdiction. Now, keep in mind, how is this lawful? Is because when it comes to understanding the Indian Citizenship Act, you understand that you are not limited as you were with the 14th Amendment status to participate in self-governance. That is why going through the citizenship procedure is so important, because it puts us in the ability to lawfully now move into a status that we are able to lawfully exercise these rights. Okay? Let me go one moment here, guys. Family defense, protecting the household. This is important because many families have been affected by this, unfortunately. And we want to make sure that our people, as they move forward, are not feeling defensive, that they don't have the ability to use their voice. Now, keep in mind, this is not to excuse any domestic violence that may be going on in a home. I want to clear that up. We're assuming that you're creating a healthy environment for yourselves, for your children, that the other jurisdiction is not stepping in because you've caused harm to a child or to yourself or to another individual. So this is not what this is, guys. Our system is here, the Xi-Amaru jurisdiction is here to make sure as you are doing things, again, operating in kingdom culture, you have a defense. Okay? Protecting the household. So family is the cornerstone of our nation. Our Constitution affirms that the family is a sacred institution, not a property of the state. Through our Indigenous jurisdiction, the Republic intervenes in cases of unlawful family interference, cultural bias in child welfare cases, and violation of parental rights. Now, the thing about this, guys, again, the best way we can protect a individual is if they are already a part of our jurisdiction. It's unfortunate when someone joins after something has happened. This is why I told you guys, share this information. Make sure that you're giving people this information, because that way they can make decisions on if this is something that's best or right for their families, and they're not sitting ducks waiting, because a lot of times many people assume, oh, it'll never happen to me, so they don't see the necessity to do certain things. But I'm here to tell you that this world is a dangerous world, and there's no magic paper out there to protect you. But what can protect you is a community, surrounding yourself with people who are working consistently on your behalf to advocate for yourself and your family. That is how the world operates. If we don't position ourselves to be efficient and effective in how the world communicates, we will consistently be thrown back and forth between systems, and then crying because we're saying, well, they're not, so many times I see it where people are trying to get a system to do better. And I'm like, how do you expect the very thing that is violating you to change? A lot of time it's not that the system is broken. It's just that you are invisible. Last week we talked about, color of law. And many people don't understand, like, you can be a person, but you can almost look like a unicorn in law because you don't have a proper status. So now you're playing Russian roulette with your life and with your family, and that is so dangerous. So be wise, guys. If you want, again, we have the defense. What defense is that? Well, in ADRIP, because again, if we need to communicate with these systems, right, then we, as your government, what we are supposed to do is now I will notify our team, hey, this is going on. This happened to a Xi-Amaru family. We need to reach out. We need to figure out what can be done. So, Article 17 of ADRIP, it says Indigenous families. Number one, The family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society. Indigenous people have the right to preserve, maintain, and promote their own family systems. States shall recognize, respect, and protect the various Indigenous forms of family, in particular the extended family, as well as their forms of matrimonial union, pretty much everything. In all cases, gender and uh, genera- generational equity shall be recognized and respected. Number two, in matters relating to custody, adoption, family ties, and related matters, the best interest of the child shall be a primary consideration. In determining the best interest of the child, courts and other relevant institutions shall take into account the rights of every Indigenous child in community with members of his or her people, to enjoy his or her own culture, to profess and practice his or her own religion, and to use his or her own language, and in that regard shall take into account the indigenous law of the people concerned. Again, take into account the indigenous law of the people concerned and their points of view, rights and interests, including the position of the individuals, the family, and the community. Why is this important? Because guess what? If you are not saying you are a Xi-Amaru Native American, you are literally killing your case. Because then if you say, well, I am such and such, guess what's going to happen? They're going to go to those other tribes that you're claiming you're a part of. And now they're going to say, okay, is this person indigenous? And if you are not careful, what's going to happen next is they're going to deny you. So now you're going to lose all credibility, because you have to understand systems speak to each other. Systems speak to each other. You want to protect yourself, you want to protect your family, you have to understand system speaks to each other. You kind of have to see yourself. Let's say you have a family, but you don't have a indigenous jurisdiction. Right now, you're like an orphan. You're like a foster kid, meaning that you may get a good family, meaning you may be treated nice here or there, but you're risking it every single time. So this is a time to get wise on who are you going to be a part of? What will be the voice that you need? What will be your community? You know, as we continue to develop our system, we've been implementing things that we never thought we would have to implement so that we are able to protect Xi-Amaru families. Because right now, many people are starting to understand a little bit more, but because they're operating in error, they're going to put a lot of indigenous families in danger, and they're going to start to try to come to us, and then they're going to put us in a position where we can't protect our people who have been proactive and productive. And this is why, we've notified people. Like, we have a process now where once you get a final judgment, you have to wait 5 years to be able to be considered into our system again if you decided to come out. Once you even triggering certain process, or getting an permanent ineligible status in our jurisdiction, meaning that you or anyone connected to you would never be able to join our jurisdiction again. Now, some people may say, well, that's pretty harsh, but the reality is, for us to protect the resources, the time of our team, everything that we need to do to protect the families that are a part of our jurisdiction, those are the calls that we have to make, because people who are playing, or one foot in, one foot out, we can't really protect them. So we have to take measures to make sure that the families that are grounded in our jurisdiction have the covering, have the support when they need it. So therefore, certain people make certain decisions, and guess what? They put themselves literally out. And it's unfortunate because and I'm not saying that they're going to encounter any issues. I pray that they don't. But for us, our nation has a responsibility to people who decide to join our jurisdiction. Okay? And that is to be a support system while our people are in here. Now, once someone goes and they decide, well, this isn't, for me, then that's fine. But as long as someone is in here, that is what we do. Now, that being said, at work, great example coming up with this one: wages, exemptions, and economic restoration. Drop it in the chat if you already receive a tax exempt certificate already. A tax exempt check. How was that? Many people think, oh, that's not possible. That is not true. Everybody does this or do that. Like, we don't care what you think, okay? Because we do this in real life. Now, that being said, it's important to understand how we do this, right? So when it comes to work, guys, I'll give you an example. A Xi-Amaru citizen works in, let's say, they're employed by a U.S. company, but they're providing labor and services as a tribal member, as a Xi-Amaru Native American, supporting their families and the restoration of their nation. How our jurisdiction applies is the Republic recognized that each citizen's labor contributes to national restoration, rebuilding what was destroyed. So this isn't a process where we say, oh, taxes are bad, because the reality is we're grateful when our people have the opportunity to be employed by another jurisdiction, because right now there's not enough tribal business to provide those opportunities. So we are not here to disrespect people's businesses and their companies, and this is why we talk about kingdom culture so much, because a lot of people are here, I don't want to say biting the hand that feeds them, but it's literally that type of behavior. And we don't operate that way because we are very cooperative. Other jurisdiction is very cooperative with our people. Okay. When we talk about recognition, we talk about when people respect the way our people operate, that is our recognition, because they understand that we are here. Now, what does this mean though? Is that as our people exercise their rights, and they are there providing their experiences and their skills on a job, which is great, they also come from an experience where we've been affected and we are technically playing catch up with others in society. So, what our nation does is we have implemented tax exemptions. Now, tax exemption is for the ability to be exempt on your job within the US jurisdiction. Why is this important? Because it's about us being able to rebuild. Okay. What do we mean by this? For you to be able to repair such a damage as what we've experienced in the lands and what our people, coming together to do, it means that we are working from a position where we don't have anything to spare. Okay. So when you are on your job, do not take it as a disrespect to be reckless, because it also comes with a big responsibility. So when you choose to so let's say someone, got their documentation and they reach out to their HR, they ask for the NAE form. And by the way, guys, if you are a part of our jurisdiction and you have not implemented this step yet, feel free to reach out to our department so that you can give your employer the form that is necessary for them to complete so that you can get your exemptions on your job. Nevertheless, guys, why is this important? Is you have to understand that this is a part of our ability to be able to pursue our economic freedom and cultural development. Okay. Your exemption is not for you to say, oh, extra money. It's for you to say, okay, I have a duty to build something important. starting with your family, starting with yourself, and then your nation. So your exemption is about you understanding that this is about repair and contributing to society, but on your terms, not being forced, not people saying they think your money should go, but us coming together and saying, how will we be most effective in society? Meaning that how do we work to clean up our communities, repair the roads the communities that we live around? This is why this is a season for you to take this moment, build so that as the years come by, we are able to pool our resources together and start making change right in our backyards. Okay. So, under our jurisdiction, you lawfully exercise economic jurisdiction over, we lawfully, the Xi-Amaru Republic lawfully exercise economic jurisdiction over citizens' income, offering exemptions from federal and state taxes. This exemption is not avoidance. It is recognition that citizens are fulfilling Indigenous obligations to their family, community, and nation's rebuilding efforts. I don't care what anyone else says about exemptions. We do not apply exemptions. And you know what's so unfortunate? If we see people who've gotten information from other people and it puts them in a bad situation because they don't understand that you're playing a very dangerous game when you don't effectively understand why jurisdiction is important. Because yes, you may be lucky, right? You may get the exemptions without implementing. Let's say you may say, why would I go to, why do I need to be a part of an indigenous jurisdiction? To I could just say I'm exempt on my job. Okay. And once the IRS comes knocking on your door because you wanted to find a shortcut, don't turn this way because we will not cover you. As you come into knowledge, as you come into understanding, we are implementing process to make sure that you are safe. But do not make our jobs harder. Implement the system the way we are showing you because I'm telling you this because I see so many people out here taking bad information because it sounds great in the moment, not understanding that they're literally about to hit a wall because they're taking advice from people who do not take what they're doing seriously. Like they're literally, because it's cheap, you're going to get cheap results. This is not something to play with, guys. It is it's a very powerful thing, but it's a very thing. You have to understand when you're talking about exemptions, that means that you are saying, I am going to be responsible not just for myself, but for my community. I'm going to be responsible for my retirement. I'm going to be responsible for the world around me. That is why I need exemptions. So if you don't think that way, I think it may be best for you to keep paying or putting that aside because if not, then you're going to get upset with us because you're going to say, well, I took tax exemptions, but you weren't responsible. So now you want someone to blame. This is not about not being responsible, guys. Do not fall for that. Oh, just do this and do that because then you're going to be somewhere you don't want to be. Our goal is not to tell you what you have to do. We're simply here to tell you what your options are. But at the end of the day, it is your job to make an informed decision on how you will move forward with yourself and your family because that is freedom. Freedom is you being able to make an informed decision. Okay. Like, I've had people who have implemented tax exemptions. Our team notified me someone who requested to be removed from our jurisdiction who implemented tax exemption. And I know many people get upset because, they feel like, oh, you guys are being too spiritual. Well, they don't consider it spiritual. They just feel like it's religious. But what I love about life is that the enemy always tries to make you think he's your friend. He always smiles at you. He always gives you the smirk to make you believe that he has your best interests because that's what you want to hear. Because many people don't understand what love is. This is a time, guys, we have to heal so that we can implement these things properly and protect ourselves and our families. That being said, let's say you are a part of our jurisdiction, but for whatever reason you want to get out, that's fine. But guess what? After you're out, that means that you are now responsible because if the IRS comes asking about you, we're going to say we do not associate with you. You've moved. You understand? So consider that before you join us. Is it worth it? Right? Don't waste your time. Don't pay anything. Don't go through anything. Really consider, is this something you want to do? Because again, guess what? The other system has a lot of benefit, a lot of things already in place that may be beneficial to you. So don't just do this because, it's a hot topic now because everybody's talking about Indigenous this, Indigenous that. Do this because you are called. Again, guys, exemption is not avoidance. It is recognition that you are fulfilling Indigenous obligations to your family, community, and nations building efforts. Income, income earned by Xi-Amaru citizens or Xi-Amaru Native Americans is protected as tribal income under Indigenous law. Used to sustain households, educate children, and strengthen our nation. That is why we implement tax exemptions. But don't forget where it comes from, guys. I'm telling you guys, I'm using a little bit of ADRIP, but I want you to understand that in Deuteronomy 8:18, it says, give me one moment, I want to pull that up because it's so powerful when you understand. Because so many times we get the, we start getting success and we feel like it's us and we start to feel ourselves. But I want us to understand that this is only by God's grace and mercy that we have these opportunities, but it is our job to use them wisely. That's why I'm saying, like, this is a season where we have to understand that as we build, as we move forward, we have to be in alignment with truth so that these things may be effective. Now, Deuteronomy 8:18, it says, remember the Lord your God. He is the one who gives you power to be successful in order to fulfill the covenant he confirmed to your ancestors with an oath. I like the NIV version. It says, but remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth and so confirms his covenant, which he swore to your ancestors as it is today. Yes, ADRIP is great, but it is important for us to understand that at the end of the day, God is who gives this ability to us. Business, tribal business exemptions. This is important, guys, because let's say a Xi-Amaru citizen operates a business within a MEXM. Although physically located within another jurisdiction, same thing applies. Your labor, your skills, your economic contributions are considered acts of national service to the Xi-Amaru Republic. Once you join our jurisdiction, you're saying basically your taxable, your resources do not become taxable to that jurisdiction anymore. Now, again, you could choose for whatever reason to still contribute. That is up to you. Um, you know, some people may need that because we are still working out certain things. So it's not to say it's wrong. We're just letting you know that that's an option. Now, how the jurisdiction applies to this, guys, think of, let's say you just open a travel business and you have equipment that you need to purchase, then guess what? You can utilize your tribal certification, tax exempt certificate, or even your tribal identification. And you can go ahead and it's a very simple process. Let's say I'm a new business owner. I needed some equipment. Let's say maybe I'm starting a laundromat, right? For whatever reason. And I need to purchase me maybe, I need to buy maybe 2 new washing machines and maybe a dryer, whatever the case may be. Then what I can do is I can go ahead and go to the store and request, hey, speak kindly to the cashier, ask them, hey, do you guys respect tax exemptions here? And guess what? They may say no. And if they say no, you have a choice. You can go to another company, you can call, you can do whatever you need to do. You have options. Please, guys, stop acting like you're so stuck if someone tells you no. You are free, and you're free to do business with people who want to do business with you. Stop living in this box. You know, so many times we have tribal members reach out to us and they tell us, oh, we had an issue with our tribal IDs. And we're like, okay, what was the issue? Well, I went to this company and they didn't respect my tax exemptions. Okay, where else did you go? Well, I went to all the others and they did. But what do I do with this company? Why would you guys, come on. Go where you're appreciated. Stop letting your trauma trick you into seeking approval and permission. Once you go through our process, there's no additional steps that you need to take. Okay? Our documentation is sufficient. Now, the problem is we do want to, once we get more resources, more boots on the ground, the goal is to be able to go into some of the companies and see if we can host maybe a training. But guess what? That's going to be on our dime. You can't want convenience of people being educated on your behalf and you're not putting in the work. So if you don't want to have to always ask, then we're going to have to employ some people who would be able to do that. But again, it starts with us understanding, well, that's going to be our job. But for now, it's very simple. You just go in, you ask, and you notify them, hey, I'm a Xi-Amaru Native American. I am tax exempt, you know, and they will notify you and they will work with you. Now, keep in mind, you are responsible to get familiar with your area. And just because you didn't get success somewhere else, it varies by depending on the location, it can depend on the branch, it could depend on many things. So you want to be getting educated and stop being so scared of the world, okay? And start maturing and educating yourself so you can have authority to be able to simply have a conversation, guys. That's all systems do. They're just talking. Stop letting your fear of life keep you trapped from exercising your rights. Okay. So once you go through that, how our jurisdiction applies. So the Xi-Amaru Republic recognized that every citizen has a divine and national obligation to care for their household and contribute to the restoration. Again, it's all about us being able to exercise our right. What right is that? Well, in ADRIP, Article 3, it says Indigenous people have the right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, They freely determine their political status, Xi-Amaru Native American, and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. Our nation offers you that ability. You don't get it because of the federal government. Do they have options for tax exemption? Yes, they do. They offer nonprofits, right? That is a form of business that you can get in the U.S. jurisdiction to be able to exercise tax exemption. However, that is not the case with our jurisdiction. Our businesses can be nonprofit, but they're normally for profit. Unless you request that you want it to be a nonprofit, that can be something that is arranged. But our businesses are not. They're tax exempt in the other jurisdiction. Simple as that. Now, why the jurisdiction is important in this case? Because you have to understand our republic exercise economic jurisdiction over the citizens, okay? So that invokes ADRIP Article 3, which protects your Indigenous right to self-determination and self-development. So you're doing it through the nation. So this includes the right to maintain and strengthen economic structures independent or external control, independent of external control. It also covers the right to use resources and labor to rebuild and advance the well-being of the nation and its citizens. The right to financial exemption from foreign tax systems that historically exploited Indigenous people, recognizing that these burdens restrict national restoration and family provision. So, what does this mean, guys? Is that when citizens provide anything within society, right, who are a part of our jurisdiction, whether they're working in the U.S. jurisdiction, they are still lawfully identified as Xi-Amaru, and they remain under tribal jurisdiction for income. Their resources are exempt from federal and state taxation as long as those earnings are used towards their family's welfare, community rebuilding, or contribution to the Xi-Amaru Republic national programs and ministries. So I'm hoping you're using your resources wisely. So what I want you to understand, guys, is Xi-Amaru citizens are not exempt because you guys, we don't want you to think this is avoiding responsibility because so many people have posed this type of information that way. That is not what this is. Our citizens are exempt because they are fulfilling what needs to be done to repair the breach. Their financial labor contributes to the rebuilding of their nation and the preservation of their families, an obligation that transcends foreign taxation systems. Our exemption is not rebellion, it is restoration. We are rebuilding what was destroyed, and every citizen has a lawful right to work in peace without the weight of the systems that once enslaved them. So, yes, you can be in the U.S. jurisdiction, but again, your wage remains under tribal protection. Citizens maintain dual status compliance while preserving tax immunity under our Indigenous law. Ooh, this is the part that makes a lot of people upset, but guess what? We don't care. And let's get into spirituality, guys. So, when it comes to spiritual defense that our nation offers for our people, we have the freedom of belief and worship. The Xi-Amaru Republic recognized Jesus Christ as Lord, for those of you who are not aware, and preserves the right to all citizens to live according to kingdom culture and indigenous belief. Where other systems blur the line between faith and politics, we affirm the faith is government's foundation, not its enemy. This dual protection under the First Amendment and indigenous religious rights ensure citizens can pray, gather, and operate ministries freely. Why is this important? In today's world, religion freedom is collapsing, okay? So for us, this is very important, especially given the type of warfare that our people continuously face, especially now because the enemy has convinced everyone that the real spirituality is no spirituality for some reason. And it has caused a lot of people to consider worshiping God as a almost like a taboo now when you are indigenous. Like we've had people who don't even look like us tell us that we can't be indigenous if we're talking about God. And we're like, well, that's who my grandmother told me about. So if we're talking about understanding indigenous rights, we understand that our foundation is based on what? That our ancestors, the ones that we know not too long ago, that they prayed, they worshiped, they sought God. And we know that even though ADRIP took place, even though the UN, Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People took place, we understand that it's only by God's grace and the prayers that our people prayed that we are able to do what we do. So we protect this right. We protect their belief. And that doesn't mean that everyone who's a part of our jurisdiction has to be, but you will respect our jurisdiction. If not, you can go to whoever your God is and let him help you build whatever you think you need to build. But we do honor God in this jurisdiction, and that is our right. Okay? Our Constitution affirms spirituality is not separated from government. This is important because when we talk about, many people want to believe that, oh, we don't have any. Yes, we do. We do have a belief system. Now, I do understand many people are hurt. Many people have gone through things. And yes, there's things that have happened to us. But this doesn't mean that we are not going to worship our God. And I'm going to touch on Article 13, right to cultural identity and integrity. In ADRIP, it says number 1, Indigenous people have the right to their own cultural identity and integrity and to their cultural heritage, whether tangible or intangible, including historic and ancestral heritage, and to the protection, preservation, maintenance, and development of that cultural heritage for their collective continuity and that of their members, and so as to transmit that heritage to future generations. Number 2, it says states shall provide redress through effective mechanisms, which may include reinstitution, developed in conjunction with indigenous peoples with respect to their cultural, intellectual, religious, and spiritual property, taken without their free, prior, informed consent or in violation to their laws, tradition, and customs. Indigenous people have the right to recognition and respect for all their ways of life, cosmovisions, spirituality, uses, customs, norms, traditions, forms of social, economic, and political organizations, form of transmission of knowledge, institution, practices, beliefs, values, dress, and languages, recognizing their interrelationship as established in this declaration. This is important. Article 16, Indigenous spirituality. Indigenous people have the right freely to exercise their own spirituality and beliefs, and by virtue of that right to practice, develop, transmit, and teach their traditions, customs, and ceremonies, and to carry them out in public and in private, whether individually or collectively. No indigenous people or individual shall be subject to pressure or impositions or any other type of coercive measures that might impair or limit their right freely to exercise their indigenous spirituality and beliefs. Indigenous people have the right to preserve, protect, and access their sacred sites, including their burial grounds, to use and control their sacred objects and relics, and to recover their human remains. States, in conjunction with Indigenous people, shall adopt effective measures to promote respect for Indigenous spirituality and beliefs, and to protect the integrity of the systems. No, of the symbols, practices, ceremonies, expressions, and spiritual protocols of Indigenous people in accordance with international law. So some people may say, well, you guys don't have any of that. Guess what? You guys know about talking in tongues, right? You guys know about catching the Holy Spirit, right? You guys know about when you think about the goodness of God, right? So when people try to shame us about our belief, we don't care, okay? Because at the end of the day, this is our right. Now, if this is not your belief system, we respect that. We respect if you are Indigenous and you may have other spiritual belief system. And guess what? You are entitled to that. Okay. But that means that then you have to find your people. The Xi-Amaru Republic would not be a good fit for you if you do not align with the God that we serve. Now, you can be a part, you understand, but you cannot assume that you're going to come into our system and then change what we do, the God that we serve, because you think it's something else. Because how could you hate the God that gives us guidance to develop our system, but want to disrespect him? So those things just don't go together, guys. That's what I'm trying to say. So if the God who gives me insight as the chief of the Xi-Amaru Republic is not the God that you want, why would you even want to be a part of our system? Again, that's that double-minded stuff. You know what the Bible says about that? I'm going to tell you guys real quick. And I love when people think they're going to come to our system and convince us otherwise. Like, how is it if we got here this far without you? How do you think you're going to change the God that has been guiding us this far? It's impossible, y'all. Okay, it says, let me read it. Give me one moment here. It's in First James, guys, which is so powerful. I recommend you learn it so that you're not that person. It says, the person should not, okay, I'll start from number 5. First James, First James, like James, it's James. James chapter 1, number 5 to 10. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. Not some things, in all they do. Believers in humble circumstances ought to take pride in their high position, but the rich should take pride in their humiliation, since they will pass away like a wildfire flower. You know why that's so powerful? Because so many people come into us thinking that they're so much smarter than us spiritually, right? And we're the, I guess we're behind. But I look at their lives sometimes and I'm like, why, even if, let's just say, right? Let's say maybe the God that we serve may not be the God. Let's say, okay, I have evidence. And some of y'all got evidence that the devil is beating you all up. Okay. So I will not be taking any advice from some of y'all, because this is why it says, because you're so smart that you're dumb. No offense, but be offended. It says, but the rich, so you're so rich in spirituality now that you think you're smarter than your ancestors that came before you, and you think that they're dumb. And now you think you have advanced past them, but yet they were more free than you. They were more alive than you. They had more peace than you. They had more joy than you. They had more understanding than you. So how could you want to disrespect their God? But they had something. Yes, they may have not done everything 100% well, right? We all fall short, but it's understanding that this is the season for us to humble ourselves. This is a season to get rid of whatever we've heard, whatever we think we know, and just ask for truth. Okay? That's all. That's all. That's all. For those of you who are in our nation, this doesn't mean you have to become a Christian. I'm not here to tell you to convert to my belief, but I'm just telling you, if you're in our system, I follow a God that guides this nation. So if that upsets you, then that may mean this isn't the right fit for you. And that's okay. Just reach out to our team. We will work to get you situated so you can find your tribe. Okay. Nevertheless, guys, the reality is a global perspective when religious freedom is under attack, which is it's very interesting the seasons that we're in when it comes to religious belief. And spirituality. I don't know how many of you guys are aware of this, but what's going on today, especially when it comes to believer in Christ, is that they're being persecuted, they're being murdered, just for believing God. So many people say, well, we were, that it was imposed upon us. And I ain't saying that's not true. But if you get so offended by someone's belief that you think they deserve to die, you should really ask yourself, well, who's the God that you serve? Because nothing should take you that far. You don't have to believe what I believe, but I don't want you dead for it. You see what I'm saying? You see the difference? Because that's not how my God operates. Our nation recognized, the Xi-Amaru Republic recognized that Jesus Christ as Lord and upholds freedom of belief under divine order. Okay? I want you to think about what you're seeing right now. I want you to understand what this is. It's basically people who are dead because of what they believe in, which is Christ, and person going to prison or going to jail for preaching in the street. Okay? I just want you to let that sink in. That God has become so offensive to people. And if you don't believe that means we're in the last days, I don't know what to tell you. Okay? But it's serious. When religious freedom is under attack, I want you to understand that in many parts of the world, faith is under siege right now. We are even here. Okay, it's not like it's foreign. It's here too. We face it every day almost when it comes to our nation. People hate the God that we serve, so therefore they hate us, and that's okay. I'm okay. I don't want you to think that that means that we care. I just want you to understand that means that the attacks that you see, if you ever come across someone coming after us, it's spiritual. I want you to understand that. Churches are restricted right now. Truth is being censored, and moral conviction is relabeled as intolerance. You can destroy yourself, you can do anything, but when you stand up for God, it's where people draw the line. It's where the enemy's demons start to manifest. These events remind us that our defense must be both legal and spiritual. I want you to understand that because I want you to look at, I think it's pronounced Amos. Amos, I think that's how you say it. Because our goal as your chief, for those of you who are in our nation and those who are coming in, I don't want you to just have cotton candy and think that you need to join us because this is the best. I want you to understand that you do get people who like this is spiritual. Now, we don't have to be in war when it comes to certain things, but we are always in a spiritual war when it comes to protecting our nation. That's just what it is. But it doesn't stop us from operating. Now, in Amos 8:11-12, it says, "The days are coming, declares the sovereign Lord, when I will send a famine through the land, not a famine of food or of thirst for water, but a famine of hearing the words of the Lord. People will stagger from sea to sea and wander from north to east, searching for the word of the Lord, but they will not find it." You know, we're entering a season where many people, and I want you to hear me in the spirit, guys, because I'm almost done. I want you to hear me in the spirit. This is the season to have extra oil. Okay. And for those of you who hear me, I know you hear me. Many people have had oil. Okay. You had some oil, but you your lamp went out. This is the season to go buy some, is what I'm trying to say. Get yourself some oil because what is coming is going to be serious. Now, again, I understand that this may upset some of y'all and this may not be the nation for you. That is fine. I'm not concerned about you. But for those of you who are in our nation, I want you to seek God. And that doesn't mean my God. Seek truth. Let truth be revealed to you. If your truth brings you to a place, whatever spirit tells you this is not the nation for you, hey, let us know so we can get you on your way and you can find your people. But for those of you who are here and you are called to this nation, this is a time to repent. This is a time to get your house in order. This is a time to position yourself. Do not be scared. This is not a time for fear because, again, God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. This is a time for you to be sober and vigilant because the enemy is like a roaring lion seeking who he will devour. This is why you've been under so many spiritual attacks. This is why you weren't supposed to listen to this message today. You weren't supposed to hear this, but for some reason, you're listening. Get your oil. It's getting dark out here. And guess what? The wise versions ain't gonna give you none. Okay. Okay. I hope you hear that with the spirit. Okay. That being said, the remnant of God and the birth of the ark solution. So guys, we have some things coming up, some changes, some stuff for people who are spiritually a part of us. So in Romans 23 to 24 says, "For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and all are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus." And I want to read Romans 11, verse 5. So too, at the present time, there is a remnant chosen by grace. And I want to continue. And it says, and if by grace, then it cannot be based on works. If it were grace, grace would no longer be grace. If it were, grace would no longer be grace. What then? What the people of Israel sought so earnestly, they did not obtain. The elect among them did, but the others were hardened. As it is written, God gave them a spirit of stupor, eyes that could not see, and ears that could not hear, to this very day. And David says, may their tables become a snare and a trap, a stumbling block and a retribution for them. May their eyes be darkened so they cannot see, and their backs be bent over. Again, I said, did they stumble so as to fall beyond recovery? Not at all. Rather, because of their transgression, salvation has come to the Gentiles to mark Israel envious, to make Israel envious. But if their transgression means riches for the world, and their loss means riches for the Gentiles, how much greater riches will their full inclusion bring? I am talking to you, Gentiles. As I am the apostle of the Gentiles, I take pride in my ministry, in the hope that I may somehow arouse my own people to envy the sale of some of them, to envy and save some of them. For if their rejection brought reconciliation to the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? If the part of the dough offered as first fruit is holy, then the whole batch is holy. If the root is holy, so are the branches. If some of the branches have been broken off, and you, though a wild olive shoot, have been crafted in among the others, and now share in the nourishing sap from the olive root, do not consider yourself to be superior to those other branches. If you do, consider this: you do not support the root, but the root supports you. You will say then, branches were broken off so that I could be crafted in. Granted, but they were broken off because of unbelief, and you stand by faith. Do not be arrogant, but tremble. For if God did not spare the natural branches, he will not spare you either. Consider therefore the kindness of the sternness of God. Sternness to those who fell, but kindness to you, provided that you continue in his kindness. Otherwise, you also will be cut off. And if they do not persist in unbelief, they will be crafted in, for God is able to craft them in again. After all, if you were cut out of an olive tree that is wild by nature, and contrary to nature were crafted into a cultivated olive tree, how much more readily will these, the natural branches, be crafted into their own olive tree? I do not want you to be ignorant to this mystery, guys, brothers and sisters, so that you may not be conceited. Israel was experienced a hardening in part until the full number of the Gentiles has come in. And in this way, all Israel will be saved, as it is written, the deliverer will come from Zion. He will turn godliness away from Jacob, and this is my covenant with them when I take away their sin. As far as the gospel is concerned, they are enemies for your sake. But as far as election is concerned, they are loved on account of the patriarchs. For God's gift and his call are irrevocable. Just as you who were at one time disobedient to God have now received mercy as a result of their disobedience. So they too have now become disobedient in order that they too may now receive mercy as a result of God's mercy to you. For God has bound everyone over to disobedience so that they may have mercy on them all. Oh, the depths of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God. What I'm saying, guys, for those who don't understand, is what we are up against is bigger than what I even could have imagined before. Why I'm saying this is because the reality is the enemy that we face is not the enemy that we think. The people that are for us and the people that are against us, you will not be able to tell the difference. Unless you're in the spirit, you will not be able to discern what is actually going on today in this world. But I want to leave with you the best thing when it comes to understanding what you're up against. Ephesians 6:12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against power, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. You have to understand everything that we face. This is why we've learned, for we walk by faith, not by sight. Because if you walk by your sight, you will be deceived in this time. So when we talk about the birth of the ARC solution, it is the Xi-Amaru ARC citizenship, a covenant of refuge. What does ARC mean? Assembly for the remnant of the kingdom. Okay. This is a new path for citizenship for people. This is to provide a lawful protection for our brothers and sisters who are receiving persecution so that they may be able to come and have rest. So this is to extend protection to righteous allies who honor divine law. This is to unite faithful individuals under the Xi-Amaru Constitution and to offer lawful covenant covering in a time of moral collapse. Why is this important to understand? Is because the enemies that we face, they don't just look like other people. They look like us. I know that some of you guys may not like this. That's okay. You can reach out and you can ask to be removed if you feel like this is not something that should be done. But this is something that God has been really showing me in the spirit. I didn't understand how it was going to come about, to be honest, because I was like, I don't understand, because our nation is designed for Xi-Amaru Native American people who went through genocide and denationalization. However, when God opens the ark, it is not only for those who built it, but for those who believe in the covenant it carries. And, you can also understand, to be honest, the ark, it has many meanings. For us, this is the lions for restoration and kingdom as well. Is the republic's lawful and spiritual response for those who seek refuge yet do not meet the lineage requirements for Indigenous restoration. It exists because the republic recognized that persecution of believers worldwide is happening. Those who still honor God, protect family, and live by conscience. The purpose of this, like we said, we want to make sure that our people have protection. The covenant condition of this, however, and you can learn more about this at aboriginalministryofjustice.org/ARC. But the covenant condition for applicants they must acknowledge the Xi-Amaru Republic as a nation under God's governance. They must live according to kingdom culture and moral discipline. They must reject corruption and uphold peace, service, and order. This pact allows others to dwell under covenant without erasing the Indigenous mission. It is not assimilation, it is alignment. Okay? What does this offer to people who may not meet the requirements by lineage? Constitutional and legal protection is offered to every Xi-Amaru citizen, okay? Whether by lineage or ark covenant is defended through the Xi-Amaru Constitution. They would have ADRIP. All of our goal is to protect our people, okay? What do I mean by that is we don't want, this is not for you guys to fight people. This is for us to build a kingdom system. One of the things that is I'm grateful that some people have left, certain things have happened along the way when it comes to us protecting families. We have people in our nation who who have married other people, who may not meet the criteria by lineage, but their spouses, their children are committed to being a part of our jurisdiction and supporting our jurisdiction. And I realized that upset a lot of people. I had someone reach out once asking if we accepted people who were not Indigenous and whatnot. And I was wondering what they meant by that, because the reality is this system is not designed. And this is what God revealed to me, is that many people wanted our nation to be a system, to be a get back at other people. That's not what our nation does. That's not what we're here for. That's not what we stand for. So if you want a nation that's going to fight other people, you need to find somewhere else, because that's not what it is. Now, do we fight evil? Yeah, that's something we're up for. But that means that it could look like something today, it could look like something else tomorrow. We are well aware of who our enemies are. We are not confused. Nevertheless, what I'm getting at is our goal is to protect Xi-Amaru people. And that means that anyone who joins our nation has to respect each other, has to respect others. If you don't feel that's your thing, then we understand that. Best of luck to you on your journey. But this is a system that is for the advancement of society, not just ourselves. This is for us leading what God has called us to do in this earth, and we will do it with excellence. That being said, guys, for those of you who are maybe considered of lineage, this step still remains. You still have to get started with the tribal screening process. That is the first step. If you have listened to this point and you want to align with people who don't just talk about nation building, but actually do this on a regular basis, consider doing your tribal screening, which is the first step of confirming your eligibility. This is not to be confused with a genealogy, guys. We're not here to look into your great, 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 great grandfather, grandmother. Like, no, we just want to know, were you affected by colonization? And it happened within the Americas. We will conduct our search. Once you complete your application, we will research to see. And then if it comes back positive, then you would be eligible to pursue official status in our nation, which would be getting the citizenship procedure done. This is very important, guys, on being able to exercise jurisdiction, meaning that you are able to have covering by our nation. If something does arise, like all of those examples that I gave, the only how you can have access to those is lawfully going through the citizenship procedure. And you typically have about 14 months after your screening is done. If you do not complete that within that time frame, keep in mind you will receive a default final judgment, and you will be removed from the jurisdiction for 5 years and have to be reconsidered after that. So it's not something to sit around and do. Only pursue these steps if you actually feel aligned. Think about it before you do. If you have questions, get in touch with get in touch. Our office are here Monday through Friday. So, you have questions, that is something that we are here to answer. But also for those of you who do not meet the regular requirements, I encourage you to learn more about the process. And the first step is also completing the eligibility process. So for you to learn more about that, go to aboriginalministryofjustice.org/art-eligible, and you will learn what will be required of you from there. So again, this is something that we want to make sure that as our nation begins to build, that we are doing it with people who don't just look like us, but people who align with this vision and mission, so that we can create an environment and a society where people are protected, where people are covered. Okay. And that process does take about 20 to 30 business days. So learn more at aboriginalministryofjustice.org/ARC-eligible. And then once you get back your results, if it is confirmed that you meet the requirements and you meet the eligibility, then you want to go ahead and get your citizenship procedure started. And the ARC citizenship procedure, you can learn more about that at aboriginalministryofjustice.org/ARC. And it'll teach you, it will tell you everything that you should expect. And you can also set up an appointment at Aboriginal Ministry of Justice to talk to me or someone from our team, and we will help you and your family to understand if this would be a good fit for you as well. So that being said, guys, we are so excited to bring this to you guys. We're hopeful that this will answer a lot of prayers for many, and it will also bring us into a community where we can thrive together and create a society where we are empowered and we are a strong people of the Xi-Amaru Republic. That being said, again, steps to take. Examine yourself. Are you a part of Isaiah 10:21? What does Isaiah 10:21 says? Let me pull it up real quick, guys. Bear with me, we're almost done. Isaiah 10:21. It says, "A remnant will return. A remnant of Jacob will return to the mighty God." So examine yourself. Is this something that you are called to do? Is it something that you thought you were called to do and it doesn't align with you anymore? Then we understand. You can also get in touch with our department. Email us at Aboriginal Ministry of Justice info at aboriginalministryofjustice.org, and we can work on getting you removed. If you feel like our nation doesn't align with you, that is fine. We don't want anyone to feel like they're hostage here. We that's not our intention. This is a nation where we build together because we want to, not because we have to. This is a choice that each of us make. So keep that in mind always. And that's step one. Step two, complete your citizenship procedure if you have not yet done so. And then step three, guys, it's simple. Live by the culture of the kingdom. This is a time for us to step into excellence. This is a time to understand that we are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. The moral foundation of our kingdom culture as a defense, guys. True protection is not just legal, it is moral. Kingdom culture trains citizens to live with integrity, self-control, and faith. A nation ruled by righteousness is a nation no foreign system can destroy, no darkness can destroy. We are not building out of fear, we are building out of faith. The Xi-Amaru Republic, guys, was not created to rebel against systems, but to restore God's divine order in the earth. We are the covenant nation for the remnant and the ark for those seeking refuge in righteousness. Thank you guys for joining me. We look forward to assisting you. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to our team. We would love to hear from you. I don't know if there's any questions. I don't see anything there, but it was great having you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. Share this with, people who may have questions, family members, others on how they can benefit, and what they can get from being a part of our jurisdiction. Y'all have a good one.